Beneath the grand marble halls of Castle Eldrin, something horrible echoed through the stone. Not footsteps, not whispers, but screams. They rose from the dungeons, clawing their way to the surface, and seated above it all on a throne carved from black obsidian was King Lothaire. He wasn't born cruel, or so the stories claim. As a boy, he was quiet, observant. But after a mysterious illness took his mother, something in him cracked. He stopped attending church. He stopped sleeping. And then he started building. What he built wasn't a library or a garden. It was a boiling chamber. Hidden beneath the feast hall, it was a metal cauldron large enough to hold a man. Guards whispered about it. Servants prayed near it. But none dared ask the king why it existed. Until one night, during a royal banquet, Lothaire stood, raised a goblet of wine, and declared, "Tonight, we test justice by fire." The crowd froze. Lothaire snapped his fingers. Two guards dragged a trembling man forward, accused of stealing bread. No trial, no defense, just screams as the chamber lid slammed shut. And Lothaire, he smiled. The king had found entertainment. The castle dungeon was never meant to be seen by anyone outside the king's circle. It sat beneath Castle Eldrin like a festering wound, hidden, ancient, alive with the memory of pain. Lothaire called it the below. He didn't step into it often, not at first, but on cold, sleepless nights, when the halls were silent and the stars refused to shine. The king would descend the spiral steps with a torch in hand. The chamber was circular, its walls blackened by soot. Chains clinked softly in the dark, and at the center, his masterpiece, a massive iron cauldron bolted into the floor, connected to roaring furnaces below. Boiling water hissed inside it, always waiting. One night, a prisoner was brought to him. A thief, they said, barely more than a boy. Lothaire didn't blink. He watched as the boy was dragged forward, screaming and kicking. He watched as the chains were locked. And when the heat began to rise, when the steam screamed louder than the prisoner, Lothaire leaned in. His face expressionless, his eyes fascinated. The screams echoed long after the body stopped moving. The next morning, Lothaire joined his council as usual. He sipped wine. He smiled faintly. And when one nobleman dared to question his methods, the king merely said, "Justice should not be whispered behind doors. It must echo through stone." From that day on, rumors spread like wildfire. Servants spoke in hushed voices. Courtiers avoided the king's eyes. But Lothaire had found something he couldn't explain. Something darker than vengeance. Power tasted better when it was served boiling. And the cauldron in the below, it would never grow cold again. It didn't stop with one boy. Soon the cauldron had a schedule. Every full moon, the fires would be lit. Every feast day, the smell of roasted meat mixed with burnt skin. And Lothaire? He started inviting guests to watch. Aristocrats, generals, merchants. Anyone who wanted to stay in the king's good favor sat in that chamber pretending not to flinch. He called it a test of loyalty. They called it madness, but only behind closed doors. The screams no longer echoed. They were absorbed by the stone. The bloodstains weren't cleaned anymore. They became part of the room, like some twisted decoration. And Lothaire began to change. Where once he walked the halls as a proud ruler, Now he drifted like a ghost, murmuring to himself. Some say he whispered the names of those he'd boiled. Others say he was speaking to something no one else could see. The below started to look different. Strange symbols were carved into the walls, bones arranged in perfect circles, a new kind of smoke, thicker, darker, poured out from the vents. What had started as punishment had become performance, and then ritual. One advisor finally spoke out, a brave soul named Elric. He begged Lothaire to end the cruelty, to shut down the below and return to reason. Lothaire smiled. He agreed. He even poured Elric a glass of wine. But later that night, Elric's screams were louder than any before him. Because this time, Lothaire wasn't trying to prove anything to his guests. He was proving something to himself. The ritual fires had been stoked for hours. The iron cauldron hissed and bubbled, its steam rising in ghostly plumes toward the vaulted ceiling. Below the castle, in the below, the walls dripped with condensation. The crowd, silent, wide-eyed, waited. Elric was gone. No one saw him again after he dared question the king. In his place stood a prisoner, shackled, terrified. A thief, they said, or maybe just a scapegoat. The truth didn't matter. What mattered was the spectacle. King Lothaire entered the chamber in silence. His robes trailed the damp floor. He didn't speak. He never did before the pot boiled. He stood beside the cauldron and simply watched. As the man screamed and begged and cried, Lothaire just stared, calm as still water. The fire crackled. The steam screamed. No one dared look away. Some say the king believed the pain released something divine, that through suffering the soul was made pure. Others say he just liked the sound, the bubbling, the begging, the silence after. When it was over, the king gave a single nod, and the next day he hosted a feast. The same nobles who witnessed the boiling dined on roasted pheasant, drank golden wine, and praised the justice of their king. But whispers spread, servants told stories, travelers left with tales that chilled the spine. Some claimed to hear cries from beneath the floors. Others swore they saw steam leaking through the stones. The castle had changed. It wasn't just bricks and halls anymore. It was alive, and it was hungry. And King Lothaire, he had never looked more at peace. When King Lothaire finally died, some say from poison, others whisper it was the devil come to collect. A strange silence swept through the kingdom. There were no grand processions, no tears. The castle doors remained shut. Inside, the iron cauldron still boiled. They buried him deep beneath the castle, but the fires never went out. Some say he ordered it that way, that his soul was bound to the pot, cursed to watch it bubble for eternity. And so, the below was sealed off. No one dares go near it, not even the rats. The kingdom moved on. New kings ruled, new wars were fought. But Lothaire's legend grew like a shadow in the dark. Parents warned their children, misbehave, and the boiling king will come for you. Travelers who ventured too close to the old castle swore they heard screams echoing from beneath the ground. Some say he's still watching, still waiting, that somewhere deep in the stone guts of the earth, the fire roars and the water hisses, and King Lothaire listens with a cold smile as the pot boils, just for fun. So next time you hear a kettle whistle or see steam curling from a pot, maybe think twice. You never know who might be watching from below.